Well, we're talking about symbolizing complex sorts of statements. Let's talk a little bit more about symbolizing conditionals. Now, conditionals are challenging to work with for several reasons. They're the only one of our connectors that's not symmetric. The order of the P and the Q matters. They disagree with our intuition from English in a lot of ways. And there are lots of different ways of phrasing them. Let's consider a conditional and all the different ways that this same conditional could be phrased. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of possible ways to phrase a conditional in English, but these are the only ones I'm going to ask you to symbolize in this class. So here's the basic way of phrasing a conditional. If I'm thinking of the number 4, then I'm thinking of an even number. So I say if, and then one simple statement, then, and then the other simple statement. So here are simple statements are, I'm thinking of 4, and I'm thinking of an even number. There are lots of other ways we could phrase this in English. We could say, if I'm thinking of 4, I'm thinking of an even number. Okay, that's not a big deal. What did we do there? We left out the then. And at that point, you just kind of need to look at where the verbs are in order to figure out where the simple statements break. We could also say, I'm thinking of an even number if I'm thinking of 4. That means the same thing. That still means if P, then Q, even though I said Q first. In other words, even though I said it second, if still introduces the if part. We could also say, I am thinking of 4 only if I'm thinking of an even number. Okay, so this is a big problem. If always introduces the if part, only if always introduces the then part. So you have to read really carefully and say, does that say if, or does that say only if? Whenever you see the word if, you have to look and see, is there an only right before it? Now this might remind you of the if and only if in the biconditional. That is not a coincidence. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Speaking of changing the ordering around, though, we could also say, only if I'm thinking of an even number am I thinking of the number 4. We need to mess around with the verbs to make that make sense in English too. So only if introduces the then part, it still does that if we switch the order. So if introduces the if part, even if we switch the order. Only if introduces the then part, even if we switch the order. All right, these last two are very mathy. The number I'm thinking of being even is necessary to it being 4. So that means the number is even has to be true in order for the number is 4 to be true. This is very mathy. We often do this in formal theorems. But what we're saying here is that the thing that is necessary has to be true anytime the other thing is true. The thing that is necessary cannot be false with the other thing being true. The thing that is necessary is the then part of an if-then. On the other hand, Also very mathy, we can talk about something being sufficient. The number I'm thinking of being 4 is sufficient to it being even. So that means knowing that the number is 4 is sufficient, is enough to tell you that it's even. Again, this is very mathy, but what this says is once you know the number is 4, you automatically know that the number is even. Whatever is sufficient is the if part. And if you think that this is all very confusing, you are absolutely correct. This is all very confusing. If you go away and practice with this for 20 years, you will find it only mildly confusing. In general, I feel like this is a really good time to refer to your notes when you're trying to symbolize something of this kind. Or think it through in a truth table. Think about which one being true requires that the other one be true. And that will tell you what order your conditional needs to be in. Let's see an example that uses one of these. Suppose we want to symbolize the sentence, I will do the homework only if I am not too tired. So we have the simple statement, I will do the homework, we'll call that P. And the simple statement, well, I am too tired is our simple statement, right? We're going to negate that. Okay, so our connector here is this only if. And we remember that only if always introduces the then part. So our then part, I am not too tired, that's not Q. So our statement is, I will do the homework, P, if P, then not Q. Not Q is our then part. So we understand this to mean, if I actually do the homework, that means that I must not have been too tired.